Good morning, Market Chameleons, and everyone joining for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market webinar. Before we get started, let's take a look at the shared disclaimer. Be aware that neither Market Chameleon, Dimitri, or myself are registered investment advisors or broker-dealer. If you're searching for investment advice, please reach out to a licensed professional. This webinar is like all our webinar and shows for informational purposes only concerning Market Chameleon tools and products. One last look at that disclaimer. And let's welcome Dimitri Pargamonic to the stage. How are you doing, Dima?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great. So today we're going to talk about large volume bursts in stocks.
Yep. Let me share my screen here. And what we'll do is go over large volume stock bursts in stocks, and we'll take a look at how we could find them, identify the large volume bursts, and what type of insights we could get. And to do that, let's go to a stock symbol that we could look at, and I'll choose Meta for today. So let's type in Meta into the search box up top. When we hit that, we come to this Meta summary page, and on the left-hand side, we have this menu. Click on price action. And then we come to another summary page showing us the price action. And to get to the table that we want, go to the right-hand side here under trading hours. We're going to hit VWAP table. And when we do that, we'll come to this table that shows us statistics on the intraday volume. I'm going to close this menu to the left-hand side to expand it. And up top, we have some summary stats on the volume bursts. And then down below, we have the data that shows us the volume breakdown in Meta minute by minute. Okay, so you could see here, this is as of yesterday's close. We're not open yet. We're in a pre-market. So here we see for each minute, it's 4 p.m., 3:59, 3:58, we show the volume. This is in shares, and this is converting the shares to dollar value traded for that minute. We also display the VWAP price. That's the volume weighted average price in that minute. And then the change, we could say the uptick or downtick from the previous minute's VWAP. So to define the volume burst, what we're looking for is an unusual trading volume for that particular minute and time of day. Okay, to do that, we need to reference, historical statistics on what typically trades during that time of day in a minute. And if it's an unusual volume burst, then we will tag it to identify that. And here we see two. So you can see here at 3:55 p.m. and 3:54 p.m. These are lit up green. And these were identified as a volume burst for this particular time of day. So at 3:54, we see there's $79 million worth of Meta that traded in that minute. The next minute, $87.3 million worth of stock traded that minute. You can see that it fell off here. And you can see the volume before that. So this was identified as a large volume burst. And if we look at the volume and then we analyze the price action, we could see that from 3:53 p.m. to 3:54 p.m., it's 3:53 p.m., the volume weighted average price was $617.54. At 3:54, it was $618.88. That's the VWAP price. So that was up $1.34. So if we combine the volume and price action, a large volume burst on an uptick, we just call that a buy burst, okay, to make it simple. Same thing at 355, another large volume on an uptick, we call that a buy burst. So if you hover over it, it'll show you that this particular minute, the volume was 3.9 times the average volume. That's why it was identified as a large volume burst, and it was on an uptick, indicating more buy pressure than sell pressure. So we call that a buy burst. So the sell burst would be just the reverse, a large or unusual trading volume on a downtick. Like if it was over here, you could see downticks minus 24, minus 36. We would then identify that as a sell burst. And when in stock trading, we're looking for these liquidity events because the way an institution, like let's think about how an institution that is trying to access liquidity, trying to either like buy a lot, let's say buy a lot of stock. Well, a couple ways it could do it is if it doesn't see the liquidity and doesn't want to move the markets. Couple ways it could do it is give it a VWAP order that will work in in somebody's system that handles a VWAP order. Let's say Goldman Sachs, Knight, throughout the day, and usually it's sitting in a dark pool trying to trade against incoming orders, so it's hidden, and this way a large maybe VWAP order for millions of dollars worth of shares, it will get executed throughout the whole day, not in one instance, but throughout the day, and it doesn't expose their hand. So that's one way that an institution that doesn't need an immediate fill, it's just trying to accumulate stock over time, follows a VWAP order. But at the same time, that VWAP order, okay, when it sees liquidity on the order book, let's say it sees a large liquidity on the order book, and before that liquidity disappears, it might just grab it, right? So let's say the order book is in size, let's say 100,000 shares on either side. Like that's typically, let's say that, whatever we go, the 3 levels or whatever. Let's say it's typically 100,000 shares. And if you need to, let's say, buy millions of shares, and all of a sudden you see, an offer there that is 1 million shares on the book, well, you might just want to grab it before somebody else does, right? And all of a sudden, there's 1 million shares there. It's on the book. You don't have to, run the book much higher. The market reached it, and that it'll grab it instantly, and that will show up as a volume burst because it will be just larger than the typical trade. Another way the volume burst could show up is if it gets matched up in a dark pool. So you could have 1 million shares, 2 million, 3 million to buy there, and if another incoming order comes in with a large block size, it could also get matched up in the dark pool order book, but it will show up as a volume burst because it will be in an unusual size. So we could look at the volume stats, come here and just kind of see the breakdown. From 355, we could see how it traded. So you could see 31% of the volume was in the dark pool here, 29 here. We could even click on it and see the breakdown of that. 38% of the volume was sweep volume. 15% was what we would call large block trades. Okay, so these are the block trades. So if you click on it, you get a much granular view of what happened. So these were block trades, and you could see a lot of them happen on NASDAQ, BATS, a couple of them in a dark pool up here. All right, so that gives you a more granular view of the breakdown of the trading, so we could get a better picture of what's going on, and the volume and price action could indicate something something going on there. I'm going to come back to here. We're giving a quick overview today. In addition to looking at an unusual burst, we want to know, what happened, because sometimes that burst could be due to other market events going on. Okay, that may not be related just specifically to that stock, but related to a bigger basket or program trade that is connected to something going on at that time period. So over here, we capture anything that we detect going on in the market that might be related. So over here, for example, there was an unusual fade in the S&P 500 stocks. So something may have been happening in the broader market at the same time. And this was just this buy burst was part of that. And it will explain it away. Okay, that this was connected or correlated to a larger event that was happening market-wide. So in the S&P 500, there are 22 stocks here that moved up within that same minute. That would be an unusual event for that minute. So we could kind of even click on that, I think, for some reason. Oh, I'm going to take a look at that. Oh, there we go. Oops. So I clicked too many times, but this would be the other S&P 500 stocks that saw an unusual fade to the buy side. Okay. Here at 354, there are actually 3 events. So you could see S&P 500. There's a big basket buy burst, meaning there was a buy burst simultaneously in multiple stocks that are part of the S&P 500 simultaneously. That's unusual. There are another 2 events there. So if we hover over it, one was in a particular sector, XLC, that also saw a large buy burst. So that could explain it away, because you do want to kind of figure out what else is going on. You want to paint the whole picture. Okay, we got a buy burst, but why? Why is it happening? Is there like a hidden order in there that's trying to establish and build a position? Is it because of something else that happened in the market that was correlated? We could also look at the options volume, see if it was potential hedge of a bit larger options trade. But it's important as a trader to really paint yourself a picture. What caused it? What led up to it? What do I believe happened there? So you have those details and knowledge of potentially okay, there's a big buy burst. What was the related information? So that's throughout the day. If we wanted to see the other ones over here, we have a summary of the volume burst. So we could see in Meta, there were a total of 6 buy volume bursts yesterday. So if we click on it, these are the times: 355, 354. So these are the ones we just looked at. There's one 947, 945, 941, 931. So if we wanted to go right to it, this little plus sign says that there's another activity going on during that minute. If we click on it, it will take us to that minute. So over here, 9:45, see buy burst. There's news out, PMI composite, PMI service, PMI manufacturing, and 12 of the S&P 500 holdings had a simultaneous volume burst. So when you click on it, we also have a breakdown of the total notional dollar value that traded in that minute. And within that minute, we have some stats. We have 38% of the volume were sweeps, 15% of the volume were block trades, 31% happened in a dark pool, 51% were institutional. Now, keep in mind, these are not mutually exclusive. So you could have a block trade that was in the dark pool or not in the dark pool. You could have sweep trades that were also in the dark pool, not in the dark pool, part of block. So these are not additive. These are just features or attributes of the trades. Okay. Sweep trades, a large percentage sweep would indicate that it was very aggressive buying, meaning that the order types were bypassing the Reg NMS rules, meaning that it didn't require you to go to the exchange that shows the best price first. It was accessing the largest liquidity. So it was going simultaneously to all the exchanges that were shown liquidity. So that means that order type didn't require you to grab the, let's say if you're buying the cheapest price first before going to the next exchange, you're fine going to the exchanges that were displaying liquidity simultaneously. So even if you got an inferior price executed first, you're fine with that. So that's an aggressive order because you're trying to grab liquidity as quickly as possible before the markets move or somebody grabs it in front of you. Okay. Block, that means that the trade itself was large in size. So when we look at a large institution, you could have an order book, and the order book could be showing 1 million shares for sale. Well, the 1 million shares, it could be one order, somebody just trying to sell 1 million shares, or it could be, 1 million different orders. It could be accumulation because the order book is an accumulation of orders at the same price. So it could be, 1 million people out there, or 1,000 people, or 100,000 people all trying to sell their stock, at this price. So the way it would get executed is that if you want to grab it all, you could have one order that grabs it all, but it will show up as 1 million different trades or 1,000 different trades, because even though you're grabbing it, you're buying it from many different orders, many different people. So block trade would be a large single trade. Like if you had one execution for 1 million shares, let's say, or one execution $1 million worth of shares, well, that's a block trade because it was one large buyer, one large seller met up. But you could also have it, like I said, broken down where it's many different trades. The dark part of it is the execution. What percentage of that volume was executed on a dark or not on a lit exchange, not on NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange, where the bids and offers are always displayed. Dark pool is a private run ECN that can execute trades, and then after the trade is executed, then they report it, but they don't show the bids and offers. So that could be run by broker dealers like Knight, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs. have dark pools that they run, and they could match up trades, execute them, and then report them on the tape. So 31% of that volume you could see was in a dark pool here at 947, 55%. So that shows us where that liquidity, existed and got traded. Right? Was it in a dark pool or lit exchanges?
Hey, D.
Yeah.
We did have a question from a new user who just popped up, Glenn, and he's asking, what's this mean for him? This information, this dark pool information.
So I can't tell you what it means for you because, as a trader, your job is to research and analyze and develop your own strategies, your own opportunities, and your own analysis. So if you're asking that, then I'm not sure what you're trying to do. But as a trader, you're trying to be the one with the most knowledge and and learn the most and be the most informed. So
this is like being at a cards table and trying to figure out what cards are being dealt, right?
Right.
You're looking into the marketplace to try to understand what's going on in this stock that you may be put in a position in.
Exactly. So, right. If it doesn't mean anything to you, then it might not mean anything to you. So it depends on your strategy, depends on your analysis of the markets and your understanding of the markets. But I can't tell you what it means to you. That as a trader, you should be able to already know. Okay, if you need somebody to tell you, then I'm not sure. As a trader, you would have to make those decisions.
Perfect.
Yep. So then the percentage of institutional trades, right? This would be the volume that is attributed to the institutional volume, where we detected that based on the trade time and sequence, 51% of that volume would have been coming from institutional size trades. It's 57%, 60%, and so forth. Okay, so that would be the breakdown of the information. So here we see that yesterday we had 6 buy volume bursts, 0 sell volume bursts, right? The buy volume burst totaled $708 million worth of stock for VWAP prices $618.31 with an average uptick of $1.08. So now we have these stats, we have these averages, and we could compare those to like a daily average. So here we see that using the last 30 days, on average, we've seen 7 volume bursts, which close to what we saw yesterday, for an average dollar value of 469 million. So yesterday the dollar value was higher, and average uptick of 76 cents versus an average uptick of 108. So we could see that yesterday's volume bursts dollar wise were larger than average, and the average uptick was larger, meaning that it was less liquid to the upside. So the buyers had to reach a little bit higher than usual. We didn't have any sell bursts yesterday, which would have been a little bit unusual because we typically see about 6 on the day for an average dollar value of 418 million. So that would be an imbalance yesterday of the bursts, the buy burst versus sell burst. Now we could also look at the cumulative. So let's say the volume burst historically, right? So click on this, and now we have this table which shows us day by day. All right, so we have these are daily. So this is yesterday's. You can see March 24th, $700 million worth of buy burst, average price of 618.31, no sell burst. This is March 21st. March 20th, and so on. And this would be the imbalance or on balance, right? So this would be the dollar value of the buy burst versus dollar minus the dollar value of the sell burst. So for example, if on March 18th, we saw $326 million worth of buy burst versus 591 million sell burst. So on balance, it was a larger sell than buy. All right. So these are the daily imbalance or on balance volume notional. And this is the 5-day. So the 5-day would take a 5-day cumulative moving average. So you could see, is the 5-day moving up or down? And this is the 10-day. Okay, so you could see kind of how over a 10-day period is it climbing or declining. So think of it as like a moving average to spot a trend. Okay, so I think I covered pretty much, this tool, a decent amount of this tool today. So I'm going to stop right there. Will.
Great. That was D there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Froze up for a second. Great job as always, D. Thanks everyone for joining, coming by to the morning webinar series. Awesome job. Thank you, Chameleons. Remember to follow us on all the platforms, particularly YouTube. Actually, on YouTube, if you register, you'll get alerted to when we're going every morning. But it's a 9 a.m. Eastern time start. Great job, D, as always, my friend.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. Stay safe out there. Have a great trading day. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Trade in peace, Chameleons. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right.